So, it was my birthday yesterday and I was absolutely hanging. I went out to a cocktail bar on Friday night with my colleagues for our Christmas party. I was in two minds about going because I'm not really a fan of going out drinking anyway, and I've never been a fan of clubbing even before all this bullshit. I've only been to a club once since COVID and I hated it. What little enjoyment I did get out of going to a club has been completely destroyed by the rules. But I do love having a drink with my colleagues, so I went. I spent most of the night moaning to everyone about how bullshit the rules were, and because I was drunk I was getting quite excited about it at some points. And my boss suggested that I make a video about it, so here I am. So we went to this cocktail bar and there was 8 of us. We had 2 tables of 4, and when we were seated we asked the guy who was serving us if we could move between the 2 tables to mingle with each other. He told us that if he caught us doing that, we'd be kicked out, which instantly pissed me off and put a bit of a downer on the night. Never mind the fact that we all work together and cross-contaminate at work, and every time we went out for a smoke, we were swapping lighters and cigarettes and hugging each other. Because it doesn't matter about preventing transmission, it matters that you are seen to be following the rules, even if they make no sense. Even if the rules actually increase the likelihood of transmission, which some of them do. So we were sitting nicely at our tables, not allowed to mix, and it felt just like being back in primary school dinner halls. I had borrowed somebody's exemption card for the evening, because I'm not wearing a fucking mask. I only ever use an exemption card if I'm out with people and I don't want to get kicked out. Usually I don't bother and I'll have the argument with people. But the exemption card really makes it feel like primary school. It's like a fucking hallway pass. We had to order food at the cocktail bar, despite the fact that nobody wanted to eat because we were there for a piss-up. The clue's in the name, cocktail bar. The bar had teamed up with a takeaway place across the road which was supplying the food just so they could stay open. Which of course means that if someone in the takeaway has COVID and infects all the food, they're going to infect us all as well. Which wouldn't happen if we were just allowed to have a drink. Now, you're not really supposed to eat the food, you're just supposed to be seen to have a meal in front of you in case the police come in and try to enforce the rules which they themselves know is utter bullshit. Like, do you think that having a burger and chips in front of you is going to fool the police in a cocktail bar? But like I said, the rules don't have to be logical, they just have to be followed. So I ordered a burger and chips, which I ate, because I can't stand having food sitting in front of me without eating it, because I'm a fat bastard and I don't like food going to waste. My colleagues picked at their food and didn't eat much of it, which of course meant that I started attacking their substantial meals as well.
What a fucking gannet!
So anyway, we were drinking and having a pretty good time. I couldn't really hear anyone else because the music was so loud, which, by the way, is against the rules, and our tables were separated. We decided that we wanted to mingle with each other more, so we went to try and find a place which had better outside seating. We left the cocktail bar and found another place, and the guy on the door told us that we wouldn't be able to sit with all of us at the same table, even if we were outside, and we wouldn't be able to mix with each other. This was when I started getting really pissed off with all of it, because there was nothing stopping us from going and sitting on the beach that night, except for the fact that it was freezing cold. So I started kicking off a little bit, and the guy on the door, who must have been the manager, said that it's easy for me to say, because I'd only get a £200 fine, but he'd be lumped with a 10 grand fine. Now, I get that managers of pubs and clubs have got to be careful, especially since they're licensed premises, and if the police or the council really wanted to be funny about it, they could go after the license and get the place shut down that way. But I hate when people use the 10 grand fine argument, because I'm 99% sure it's just an illusion. I don't see how they would be able to get any money out of you if they forced your business to close and you've got no income. You can't get blood out of a stone. And if enough people got fined and refused to pay, there'd be no way that it would be enforceable. The magistrates' courts would be overrun with people who were just literally minding their own business and doing things that would be lawful if not for the new normal, which nobody consented to. This is why I suspect that Piers Corbyn, after he hosted a mass gathering, he managed to get away without having to pay the fine when it went to the magistrates. They had the perfect opportunity to make an example of him in a high-profile case, but instead they decided to hand him an absolute discharge, which means he will not be fined or face any further punishment despite being found guilty. I think they did this because they knew that he would fight it all the way and make an example out of them. And £10,000 is such an unreasonable amount. They've obviously just picked a high number to make people scared. But until people get over the fear of, oh, I might get fined 10 grand, and actually stand up to it, it will never go away. Some people have realised this though, like hair salon owner Sinead Quinn, who as of November 25th has been fined £27,000. So she's faced with the choice of following the rules and closing her business, which she's no doubt put loads of hard work into, and then not having any money, or taking her chance with the fines. And because Sinead Quinn is clearly a brave and clever person, she made what I would say is the right choice. I'd love to know whether she's actually had to pay any of that $27,000 or whether they've even pursued it at all. It makes me laugh though because it's so utterly unpayable. I'd be amazed if they've actually tried to enforce any of that, and to be honest, I might even try and get in contact with her to find out. The way I see it, they might as well be trying to give her a fine for £1 zillion. But knowing how most Brits have reacted to the bullying police state we're now in, the thought of £1 zillion fine would probably make them shit themselves in fear as well. By the way, you're not supposed to let bullies pick on you in the hopes that they will get bored and move on to find somebody else, because that doesn't work. You're supposed to stand up to them and tell them to go fuck themselves, and the government is no different in my view. Anyway, we told the manager of the bar that we would go somewhere else if he wasn't going to let us mix. So he basically turned away our custom because he's scared of losing money. Again, nothing to do with the virus, I should imagine. He's just scared of the police.
Okay, everyone, prepare to be fucked by the long dick of the law. Get out.
So we walked back to the cocktail bar, and on the way back we passed a bar which had set up a gazebo outside, presumably to work around some COVID rules. And people were sitting inside it drinking. Freezing their bollocks off, I should think, which of course makes you more susceptible to infection, but don't worry about that. And I wouldn't have thought that being in a gazebo, which is technically outside, but sort of inside at the same time, I wouldn't have thought that that actually reduces the chances of you catching it. Anyway, when we got back to the cocktail bar, we were told that we had to reorder more food, which we didn't want. We put up a bit of a fight with the guy who was trying to force feed us because the government told him to. We told him that we were there to put loads of money over the bar, and he actually had the brass neck to ask us how much we were planning on spending. I told him that if he carries on treating his customers this way, that he was going to put himself out of business. We went to the same cocktail bar last December for our Christmas do, before the pandemic, or in my opinion, at the start of the pandemic, and it was absolutely shoulder to shoulder in there. This time there was about 20 customers, including us. I dread to think how much money that place has missed out on this year, not just because they are following stupid rules which make no sense and in many ways make the situation worse, but also because people just don't want to go out to be treated like primary school children, getting told off for getting up out of their seat. So in the end we decided to back down, because if we didn't, that would have been the end of the evening for us, and it was only like 9 o'clock at this point. We ordered another platter of food, which we left sitting on the table, and it was totally wasted. And it was actually turning my stomach a little bit because I'd already eaten so much. But it's all to fool the police, you see. Just on the off chance that they decide to waste their own time by coming into the cocktail bar to check that we're all eating our dinner like good little citizens. We were still sitting at the same divided tables, and we didn't really get to mix with each other at all, except for when we were outside smoking. All in all, it was a good night, and I did enjoy myself, and it was nice to let my hair down for like the first time this whole year, and after working non-stop this whole year while everyone else has been getting furlough, but it could have and it should have been so much better. But it just winds me up how I'm expected to go along with this pantomime of controlling the virus, which nobody actually believes in, people are hopeless at anyway, and in many ways trying to control it just makes the situation worse. And that's why I won't have anything to do with the new rules and restrictions, and why I don't acknowledge them whatsoever. I'm quite capable of making my own mind up. I'm quite capable of protecting myself and protecting other people from me. And in my view, if you're in a cocktail bar, you're taking the risk. So what's the problem? If you get it, you've only got yourself to blame. And just to really nail that point about trying to control the virus and actually making things worse, just think about things that drop your immune system and think about them in the context of like the lockdown and everything that's been going on, right? So, WebMD, things that suppress your immune system. Lack of sleep. Well, I know I've certainly had plenty of sleepless nights since the start of this year because I've been up worrying about things that have been going on. And I should imagine people that are faced with the prospect of losing their business are in the same boat. Anxiety. Again, there's plenty of anxiety going around. Plenty more, I should think, than there was last year. Low vitamin D, like from not getting enough sunlight because you're under house arrest. Certain medication, I don't think there's anything to say about that, really. Too few fruits or veggies. So this is one thing that I actually wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind the government bringing back rationing. Like, if they had some sort of positive approach to this as opposed to a negative approach, I wouldn't mind the government controlling what I eat because I'm hopeless at controlling it myself. And if they actually fed the population good shit instead of, people going out and getting takeaways all the time, that would definitely help towards the situation, in my opinion. Like, I wouldn't mind if they brought back rationing at all. I think they should do it. Marijuana. Well, how many people do you think have taken up smoking this year or been smoking a lot more because of the lockdown? I should imagine quite a lot. High-fat diet. Again, people ordering takeaways all the time instead of eating healthily. And I'm a bit of a comfort eater as well. So if I get stressed out, I like to eat. So that's not good. Too little time outdoors. Well, I've already covered that. Smoking. And again, if anxiety is going up, if stress levels are going up, then I should imagine more people are going to be smoking as well. Alcohol. Well, we know that alcoholism skyrocketed since the start of the lockdown, with many people drinking themselves to death. I've covered that in a previous video. Grief. Now, I was thinking about this one because obviously there's going to be a lot of grief going around. But it says here, there is some evidence that sorrow, especially if it lasts a long time, can depress your body's immunity. And I was thinking that maybe if you didn't have the closure from going to, say, a loved one's funeral, that grief would be extended over a longer period of time. And so, yeah, not good. Lack of exercise. Well, they shut the gyms during lockdown, and I'm not too certain, but I think they may have said that gyms are now going to be exempt from lockdowns. I could have got that wrong. But again, if they lock down the gyms during winter, who's going to want to do exercise outside in this temperature? It's not going to happen, is it? And then finally, no sex. Well, sex is illegal at the moment, isn't it? Or is it? Fuck knows. And that's it. Out of, 13 of the items that WebMD's listed as things that can drop your immune system, I think 12 of them have been made worse by the lockdown, I would say. We need to seriously rethink our approach to this pandemic. The problem is we have no idea how to look after each other collectively, but we do know how to look after ourselves individually. And any effort that we make to try and look after each other collectively can backfire. And I think this has been proven by all of the people fleeing London after it was placing Tier 4 restrictions. They're now going to be spreading this new strain of the virus all over the country. All because the government thought it would be a good idea to legislate against human behaviour, in the hope of protecting the collective greater good.
You should be ashamed. Calling yourself a community that cares.
Oh, but we do care, Nicholas.
It's all about the greater good.
The greater good.
How can this be for the greater good?
The greater good.
This is why I keep saying that the only person you are responsible for protecting is yourself and anyone in your care. This is why we need an individualist approach instead of a collective approach. The collective approach leads to bullshit rules and restrictions which don't work, make things worse, trash the economy, oppress people, and which force people to try and seek loopholes. I mean, is there any better example of how stupid things have become that while people are dying and having their businesses and lives wrecked by the government and missing critical treatment for other illnesses, that while all that shit's going on, the national debate a few weeks ago was about a scotched egg? This is what lockdown's done to us, and it's turned everyone against each other at the same time. The other alternative would be for the government to support people who genuinely need the support and leave everyone else to make their own decisions and run their own affairs. If people want to protect themselves against the virus, they can choose to do that. There's nothing stopping them. And to be fair, most of them are doing that anyway. But to expect everyone to have this collective responsibility for everyone else's health is not only impossible, but detrimental in virtually every way that I can think of. And as far as I'm aware, there's still been no evidence that it's actually helped control anything or save anyone. The only thing they've managed to control is law-abiding citizens and their businesses.
Many of us will have seen those images of
Yes.
people leaving London. I think we might be able to show some as well. I mean, look at the packed stations there.
Yeah.